JRE number 1615, Hamilton Morris, discusses a psychedelic experience so intense it felt like completely disappearing from reality.
Like so many things that Terence McKenna said, it's both true and untrue. I think it's untrue in a literal sense, but very true in a poetic sense, because the historical, cultural context of a drug is part of what you bring to that drug experience. The molecule does not contain information. The ketamine molecule does not bring an experience to you. That is something that is generated in your brain by your consciousness. And so if you have a new substance that has no cultural associations, then maybe it was like that for him.
So you don't have expectations.
You don't have expectations.
Right. That's a big part of it, isn't it?
It's a huge part of it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I made a piece in the new season of my show about 5-MeO DMT containing toad venom. And there's a big controversy in the toad venom community, which, believe it or not, is a community. And they are purists.
Are they friends with the opiophiles?
Oh, definitely not. No, they don't like the opiophiles.
So what does the venom community think?
They think that this venom has some spiritual component derived from its association with the toad that makes it better than synthetic 5-MeO DMT. Now, I've analyzed several samples of toad venom, and before 5-MeO DMT was made illegal in the United States. And in terms of what you find if you inject it into a mass spectrometer, 5-MeO DMT is the only psychedelic that's present. In some samples, there might be trace quantities of another psychedelic called bufotenine, but it's a minuscule amount of a less potent molecule. So predominantly you have 5-MeO DMT, which is likely the strongest naturally occurring serotonergic psychedelic. And for conservation purposes, it's necessary that people stop milking toads because it's become too popular. Mike Tyson's talking about it all the time. It's like, it sounds ridiculous. Like Mike Tyson could have an effect on conservation, but if a celebrity says they like something, that can have a tangible effect on the environment.
I know people who have toads for that very reason, because Mike Tyson talked about those toads. Now they have toads, and they milk these toads.
Oh, yeah. Me too. I talked with a billionaire who flew a private jet full of toads to Greece to create a private toad sanctuary.
Wow.
And I saw photos of it. Yeah.
Wow. How many toads has he got?
In the photos, it didn't look like that many. It didn't look like a jet full.
5-MeO DMT does not strike me as something that you'd want to do a lot. It's so terrifying. That's probably the most terrifying experience I've ever had on psychedelics, because I ceased to exist. Like, it's the one drug where I feel like when I took it, I wasn't there anymore. I was gone until I came back. Like, I felt like I didn't have thoughts. I knew I was experiencing the 5-MeO DMT realm or whatever it was, but there was no context in terms of, I didn't realize I'm on my couch sitting at home. Like, I was gone. There's no visuals. It was just this white, sort of pixelated, like grayish white, gone world, and it was terrifying because it felt like death. It was the one thing that felt the most like, oh my God, like now I'm not here anymore. But coming back from it, I think it was very valuable. Like, as I was returning, I remember thinking so much about the bullshit way in which I talk. I remember thinking that, like, God, so much of the way I would communicate was not just me trying to get my thoughts across, but me trying to say things in a way that would be impressive, or in a way that would be flowery, or, try to make it look like I was more intelligent than I was, or whatever. But I remember, like, remembering that, like, really clearly, like, wow, I gotta clean up the way I talk. So I'm full of shit. Like, thinking that as I was trying to figure out how I was going to describe this experience, I was realizing as I was thinking, like, God, I got to figure out how to describe this. Like, boy, I talk like I'm full of shit. like, so there was value in that. But I did it a few times. I think I did it 3 times. But it was terrifying every time. Terrifying. Like, while you're gone, like, while you slip away, I remember just thinking, like, whoa, this is not good. This is not good. Like, you feel like, oh, my God, I fucked up. Like, I really died. I really stopped being here. And it also makes you think, like, maybe this is going to the light. Maybe this is what they talk about when they talk about going to the light when you die. Like, maybe you're having this kind of experience because it's really disturbing. But then pretty peaceful when it's over. Like, I felt pretty good when I came back. But the concept of giving away all of my control of reality like that, for some reason, DMT doesn't scare me as much.
It's a totally different drug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Experientially, chemically, it's, psilocin is closer to DMT than 5-MeO-DMT is. Mushrooms are closer, chemically speaking.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that it defies description in a different way than other psychedelic experiences do. With something like DMT, it's difficult to describe because there is such an abundance of imagery and thoughts and associations that it's extremely difficult to communicate that to someone. With 5-MeO-DMT, there's nothing. And that's also difficult to communicate, that you white out and there's an absence of everything completely.
Yeah. Do you find it terrifying?
I have found it terrifying, yes. It's very, I had a very profound experience with it in 2017, and I have no real desire to use it again.
Yeah, that's my thought too. It's like, I'm not going back there. I'll go back to DMT. I'll go back to that.
Oh, me too, because it's just a different drug entirely. And I think that DMT can be integrated into a normal life much more easily than 5-MeO-DMT. Actually, I credit DMT with I talked about the sort of COVID denial that I had at the beginning of the pandemic, where I was, I can't stop making my TV show. We're all going to get it anyway. We can't just stop working. We can't shut down the world. We can't stop flying. And then I smoked DMT and had this image of MC Escher's angels and demons, but instead of angels and demons, it was pangolins and horseshoe bats.
Whoa!
And came out of it and thought, of course I feel horrible. Of course this is depressing and confusing. This is actually one of the worst things that has happened in my lifetime, and I just have to accept it now. And I felt so much more at peace. It just stripped away the denial, and I could just say, all right, this is happening. And
so you were just wrestling with the reality of having to shut down.
Yeah. And kind of, I resented some other people on my team who, in retrospect, were behaving in a way that was completely rational, where I was thinking, like, oh, come on, we're not going to go on this shoot.
Right.
Really? But they were right, and I was wrong, and I had to stop.
JRE number 1608. Michael Malice explores the chilling theory that DMT lets humans briefly enter another realm.
You want to talk about little people? Do you want to talk about the elves?
Elves?
The
Like
elves.
which ones?
The machine elves.
Oh, okay.
Because I want to talk to you about it, because I've been doing some research about this.
Research?
Yeah.
What kind of research? Taking drugs?
I would never take drugs.
Oh.
Drugs. If someone's on drugs, they say, what's wrong with him? Is he on drugs?
Right.
Is he a drug addict? You would never want
Crazy
to do that.
people.
Only crazy people do drugs.
Yeah.
So do you think, you've done more to popularize DMT than anybody else, do you think that these elves are real?
I don't know if real's the right word. The question is, we look at consciousness and we look at like an intelligent entity as being in a physical carbon-based form that's in front of you that you can shake hands with or give a hug to.
Right.
When you experience what happens when you take dimethyltryptamine, you throw all that out the window because the environment itself is not it's not defined. It's fluid, meaning that it's changing constantly, but yet it seems far more vivid and far more real than this life right now. And there are these things that are there, and they communicate with you, and they seem to be really communicating with you, and they seem to also know you, know all of your bullshit, and be able to see right through you.
Yes.
But they don't seem to be you. They seem to be something else.
Right.
That's all we know.
Right, but I'm asking you what you think.
But that's what I think. That's all we know. There's no, you can't, like, you could say that's a well of souls. That's what happens when you die. That's the afterlife. That's a parallel dimension. These are aliens. That's how they can communicate with us. They're non-physical life forms that exist in these realms of light. We don't know. It's just, you're just guessing, right?
Well, I've been talking to people, and I've been told the theory that we are 3D beings, but they're 4D beings. So that we're 3D projections of 4D beings. So when you're breaking the veil, you are perceiving the 4D space.
Maybe. But that's all you could ever say. It's really just a maybe. You know, when people say, I know what that is, I am communicating with the afterlife, or I know what that is, these are the real aliens. This is what happens when you're sleeping and people have these alien abduction experiences. What they really are having is an endogenous DMT dump, because your brain does produce DMT.
Right.
But new research is showing that it's not just the brain that produces DMT. That it's they used to think it was the pineal gland, but now they think literally the whole brain is producing it, and the liver and the lungs. So it's part of the human body. It's something that the human body makes. They've been able to isolate it in specific organs, but they think this really bizarre, super potent psychedelic compound is everywhere, and they also think it's responsible for dreaming. They think there's an amount of it that comes out while you're sleeping, while you're in heavy REM sleep. This is speculative. They're trying to, but the thing is, there's parallels, right? One of the parallels to the psychedelic states and dreams is that they're very difficult to recall. You wake up and it's the most vivid, you come out of the experience, right? It's the most vivid thing that you've ever experienced in your life. And then moments later, you're like, I don't remember what happened. It's just like a dream.
So you've never had, because everyone who takes it talks about the spirit molecule, right? How much it affects their understanding of reality, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. You've never had lingering effects from the DMT experience cross over into meat space?
You mean like tripping for no reason?
Or just seeing, the way I've been told is that, like, if you're on a highway, right, and there's all these billboards, you don't notice what those billboards are, right? Mm-hmm. But let's suppose you're on a highway in another country and you don't understand what those billboards are if you want to, because they're another language. After you take it, you are able to see those signs and perceive them and read them. So that things in real life that you would previously been oblivious to, you now pick up on connections that you previously couldn't.
Well, I guess you could say that anytime you have a paradigm shifting moment in your life where, I mean, you could have this from a near-death experience or the loss of a loved one, where you're forced to reevaluate everything and look at things through fresh eyes, that anything like that is going to force you, anything that's just so titanically bizarre and ultimately incredibly different than your average day on this earth, this thing that changes you. It's going to force you to take things in. I would look at it that way more than I would look at it like all of a sudden you can like see these billboards in another country and recognize these patterns. I mean, you're just probably just being more aware. Marijuana does that for me more than anything.
Okay.
You know, especially edible marijuana. Edible marijuana for me is like one of the most reality highlighting experiences, because it makes me think about the buildings. Like, this is I just take these fucking things for granted.
Yeah.
There's a 64-story thing in front of me, and there's these human catacombs, and people are shitting into these tubes, and they go down through the water, and there's pipes everywhere with human shit, and then there's electricity pumping through everything, and everyone's got a TV or a PlayStation running, and we're all just juiced into this machine. And
yeah, the Matrix.
Yeah, listen, I think of people as human batteries all the time. I really do. I think of people as consuming currency producing batteries. Like, that's what we're consuming things, taking things in, and then we're also through our work all day long, so many people just doing something they hate to do just to create currency and then to add to the system and to purchase more things. And you just see them sitting in front of the machine sitting in front of the machine, then they go home, sitting in front of the TV, sitting in front of the screen on their car, and we're constantly in this state of consuming and producing, and then adding to this weird techno society that we live in.
Okay, let me ask.
That's all from weed.
Okay, but let me ask you another question.
Okay, please
Let's
do.
suppose I drew in a piece of paper. I drew you, and I drew me, and I drew a house, right?
Okay.
And I said, what does what correspond to? And you'd point to that, you'd say that's me, and you'd point to that, you'd say that's Malice. That house has no correspondence in 3D space. It's a theoretical house, right?
Okay.
What if some of these people that you're talking about don't exist in the 4D space? What if they are 3D representations that don't have a representation in 4D space, just like that 2D house I just drew doesn't really exist?
Okay, so what if they're like, what is that?
NPCs, yeah. What if they literally don't have a higher form of existence?
Isn't that like your ego fucking with you, though?
Well, that's why I'm asking you, because apparently when people do a lot of DMT, they see things like this.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I wonder. I've met people that see things on DMT that were very ego driven. Like I knew a guy who had a crazy DMT trip, and he felt like he had a team that was working for him in this other dimension, and they were all about him, and they're helping him, and they're all together with him, and that, like, you know, his life, he has destiny in his life, and he has to fulfill his destiny, and they're working to fulfill his. I'm like, this is like some weird ego driven idea of what's happening in this space, that he's like sort of he's forcing whatever that experience was to fit this mold of what he thinks of himself. And by the way, it wasn't very accomplished at the time, right? So thinks of this as like, it's, you know, delusions of grandeur, right?
Of course, I know well.
Yeah. But this is, I think, a kind of some sort of a reconciliation of that. Like, he's sort of trying to figure out why it's not happening the way he wants it to happen, and what is wrong, but yet also tripping and seeing these entities and saying, oh, they're all with me, they're going to help me, they're working with me on all of my plans, and this is all my team and another life. It was very strange. So I never felt like that at all. I've felt every time I've done it, it's like, here's all your bullshit.
Oh yeah,
look at you, loser. It's highlighted.
No, it's never
all.
like, you're so great, and we're so honored to be talking to you, Joe Rogan. It's like, dude, get over yourself. No,
you ain't shit. Yeah.
But I thought that there are some people who basically become chiropractors of reality. So if he's like, you're going to help me achieve my goals and you're behind me, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
But if he's there to help them achieve their goals, that's a whole very different perspective.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So like that kind of thing where like just awesome things happen to you, not what you would want, but you're basically an agent of bringing about positivity and kindness in the world.
Yeah. Well, I think the more you can do good things, right? The more you can be an agent of kindness and positivity, the more you're going to literally spread out the fingers and branches of love.
Right.
And if you do that, and then you do have psychedelic experiences, I would imagine if you've made a positive shift like that, your experience would be much more positive when you go into that dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
JRE number 1678. Are psychedelic entities messages from another dimension or signals our brains are tuning into?
You know, McKenna had a really weird idea about psychedelic experiences, that we always want to think of each individual psychedelic experience we have as being our experience. But he believed that there was a database connected to each entheogen. And so each one of these substances, you weren't just experiencing it, you were experiencing the trips of millions of people over thousands of years.
It's like Carl Jung's idea of collective unconscious, right? That there's this imagery that is now hardwired in our bodies, and that's why cultures produce art that has all these kind of recurring motifs. Well, we know the DMT story, right? With the machine elves and the various, a lot of people have the same imagery on that drug.
Right.
Now, whether Terence McKenna started that, because that was a meme he introduced to the culture, you'd have to find some innocent culture and see if they have the same experience that had never heard about that idea.
I did not have machine elves in my consciousness, but I did hear literally not even hearing it. Like when they would say things to you. But one of the things they said was, do not give in to astonishment, which was exactly what McKenna used to always say. Do not give in to astonishment. And then the other thing was, I love you. They're like, but like a child, like, I love you 600,500,000 times. They would say it in this crazy way. And then they would go, look at this. And look at it. And every time they would go, look at this, they'd show you something more spectacular than you had seen before. Like every time the visuals, like you would think these visuals are impossible to pass. And they would go, look at this. And it would be even more insane.
Now, why not give in to astonishment? What's the idea behind that?
I think the idea is you could be so blown away by what's in front of you. And this is from McKenna's words. So again, I don't know how much of what I was experiencing was these things communicating with me, because I never heard anybody say that they said, look at this, or I love you 6,500,000 times. Yeah. Because they were talking like a child says, I love you 1 billion, million, trillion times. You know what I mean? Like one of my daughters would say something like that. But I wasn't sure if I was hearing this because I was preparing, because I'd read and listened to McKenna talk about it, or if what was going on was some sort of a concerted effort to get you to just pay attention to this and don't freak out. Mm-hmm. Don't go, oh my God, this is too much. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't. Right. Because it's so mind.
Some believe the place seen on DMT might be where human consciousness goes after death.
You know, as a sober guy, there's part of me that wishes, because I liked mushrooms, but only like once or twice a year because it's so fucking fun, and you get, like you said, you get all that stuff going.
Yeah.
But
I did them last week.
How was it? Did you laugh a lot? Because all I did was laugh.
Post Malone and I did a podcast. We did mushrooms.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had a good old time.
But how long were you tripping?
Well, the podcast was 4 hours long, and we were drinking too, so it was like just madness. It was all just like mushrooms. I could feel the mushrooms, and I was getting high too. He wasn't smoking pot, but we were drinking Bud Lights, and it was a lot of chaos.
This is like exactly what my 80s were like. But I think about people go and do ayahuasca and do those. That really appeals to me.
That's different in that, you know, you could call it a drug, but it's DMT, which is what ayahuasca brings up.
Right.
That's what it's the active ingredient. You're still you. You're not drunk. That's what's weird about it. Well, I don't know what it is, but if you wanted to get real woo-woo, you would call it some sort of a chemical gateway into another dimension or to another realm that you can't access without it. It doesn't seem like a drug.
But how is it not any different than I got stoned and I saw crazy shit?
Well, first of all, it's endogenous, right? So your brain actually has this chemical inside of it. It's one of the more interesting things about this drug is that your body knows how to process it so well. Like if you do coke, right? Like I'm sure you're coked up for a long time, right? Your body's all fucked up for a long time. Dimethyltryptamine only lasts like 15 minutes.
What?
Yeah, your body recognizes what it is, so it brings you back to baseline very, very quickly.
Really? So if you do this, it's a 15-minute experience?
Yeah, the ayahuasca takes longer because ayahuasca is an orally active version of it. So what ayahuasca is the roots of one plant and the leaves of the other. So you have DMT in one plant, and in the other plant you have something called an MAO inhibitor. MAO is monoamine oxidase, and that's produced by your gut to break down dimethyltryptamine and a bunch of other chemicals. But it breaks down dimethyltryptamine because dimethyltryptamine is in a bunch of different plants. So you could trip just eating phalaris grass if you didn't have monoamine oxidase in your gut. So when you eat this if you ate the grass, nothing would happen because your body would break it down. But if you had an MAO inhibitor, then you would trip balls.
Well, and then the other thing that people talk about with is like, I vomited for 5 hours.
Yeah, that's the problem with ayahuasca. You're going to blow your asshole out. You're going to diarrhea, throw up. It's disgusting stuff. You know,
I don't want to do that.
It's also because you're getting the plant. You're getting all the stuff that's, you know, not the active ingredient from these roots and these leaves too. And then all of a sudden your body's freaking out.
What did you have you ever had any awakening or vision or
I've had a lot of visions on dimethyltryptamine. Yeah.
anything that you once you were done tripping, that didn't seem like the ramblings of a madman, or was it stuff that you were like, oh wow, I had a revelation?
It's hard to say. They all seem impossible to describe to anybody else, other than people that have experienced it. But what it does make you realize is that how the thing that I always felt when I came back is like, how is this possible that you could go to a place like this, where you could see something that's way more vivid and way more powerful than regular life? Like whatever it is, it's not like it's dull and confusing and you feel drugged and you feel less. You feel more. You see more. It's more vibrant. It's more powerful. And whatever is over there seems to know you. It seems to understand. It seems to be you're communicating with something that's far more intelligent than you, far more advanced, and not hindered by all of the things that we're hindered by, like our egos and our nonsense and our insecurities and our civilization and culture. It's like it's some sort of other kind of consciousness, and it's they joke about things. They make fun of you. Like one time I did it, and all these jesters, like this, like a geometric pattern of gestures, like a fractal, like infinite gestures, were giving me the finger like this, fuck you, like mocking me. And the message that I got was that I was taking myself too seriously. Like maybe even like while like my intentions going into the trip, I was taking myself too seriously. Wow. And I remember relaxing on, oh, okay. And they're like, that's right. Like they're nodding their head. Like, yes. Like it was a message like, hey, stupid, you take yourself too seriously. Fuck you.
Fuck you. I like
and it
fuck
was
you.
gestures, like with a hat and everything.
So in your life now,
Yeah.
like let's say you are stressing out about something as very seriously, do the fractal gestures, do you remember them? And go, oh yeah, I had this.
Very, very.
But you know what I mean?
barely.
Like it, you bring something back that you can practically use in your this dimension, this time.
Humility. There's a humility that comes from real psychedelic experiences that you just because you know that they are possible, it makes you second guess the significance of regular existence. Because it seems like whatever that is, like that might be where you go when you die.
Okay. I was waiting for the moment. So
I don't know if that's what it is.
JRE number 1133. Dennis McKenna explores the theory that DMT may remove the brain's filters and reveal another reality.
You look at the DMT experience and you look at its effect on the human mind. How much of you subscribes to the idea that what we're looking at is some sort of a chemical gateway?
Chemical gateway to
what? Whatever it is. To whatever that DMT experience is. That this is something that your brain has the ability to travel to. But, I mean, since we know that the body does produce this, and we know that it's possible for people to, I mean, I've never done it, but I know that people who do Kundalini yoga have apparently reported trip-like experiences that are very similar to a real DMT flash. So the mind has this ability to do this on its own. What do you think that is that something worth considering, that this is some sort of a pathway to a nearby dimension or to something that's around us all the time but we just don't have access to with normal neurochemistry?
There's
is it too many what ifs or who knows?
No, I mean there's so much in what you said where you have to go back and unpack all of these things. When we got excited about DMT, Terrence and me, in the late 60s, what led us to go to La Chorrera was that it seemed like a completely different order of magnitude than any of the other psychedelics. And we came to it really from a childhood that was steeped in science fiction. So we carried with us the idea, this really is another dimension. And it may be a portal to another dimension. And as science fiction nuts, we were totally okay with that.
Yeah.
And we thought maybe DMT was, and maybe it is. Or it somehow pulls the curtain back on something that's around us all the time that we don't see. But again, in thinking about these things, is it something that is entirely within the brain that it originates, or is it something that, is it like a lens that, or our eyes are covered with filters and DMT temporarily removes those filters? I think it's hard to know. I mean, I think maybe experimentally we could begin to approach this. Have you, and I think we really know. I think that's another thing about natural philosophy that's important that science is overlooking. And natural philosophy always remembers the limits of what is known, and science is a bit arrogant about what they think is known. Science only understands a small fraction of all there is to know. And ayahuasca and other psychedelic always remind me of this. When I take it, remember the limitations of your knowledge. Or sometimes it more or less kindly says it. Right. You don't know shit. And it's true. We don't know shit, and scientists can forget that, But as far as this DMT thing, this is actually, there's controversy about this because, a lot of people who have worked in this area say it's pretty well established that endogenous DMT can produce these states, that the pineal can secrete DMT under certain circumstances or under stress. The lungs can produce large amounts of DMT that are translocated to the brain. But it's not so clear that goes on. I mean, it's clear that it can be produced, but David Nichols, who knows a thing or two about pharmacology, founder of the Hefter Institute, world's, most authoritative, highest authority when it comes to the chemistry and pharmacology of psychedelics. He's taken a reductionist argument on this that's kind of hard to knock down, which is that DMT is produced endogenously, but it's chopped up so quickly that it never reaches the site of action, and it never reaches the levels at the neuron that it would take to activate the neuron. So
even when consumed, or are you saying endogenously produced DMT?
Endogenously.
So that
it does when you consume it. Obviously, you flood the system and you get much higher levels than is ever produced endogenously. But we haven't really measured the levels produced endogenously during, especially these extreme states. And that's part of the problem. Yeah. That's part of the problem. How do you do that?
Have you done it?
How do you do that? What?
Have you done Kundalini and tried to recreate?
No, I haven't.
Me
done
neither.
It.
I haven't. Terrence had that fantastic joke. It was a talk about that this monk had practiced a city of levitation. Do you remember this one? And that the Buddha came to town and he said, for the last 20 years, I've practiced the city of levitation and I can now walk on water. And the Buddha said, yeah, but the ferry's only a nickel.
Right.
So it's like, do you want to practice Kundalini for 10 years and bang your head towards the east, or just smoke DMT 30 seconds later you're in the center of the universe?
But I think the last time I was on your show, we talked about this other thing, this ajna light we discussed.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've interviewed.
Yeah, we have to buy you one. I said we've totally dropped the ball on that.
You don't have to buy me
No,
one.
we do have to buy you one.
You want to buy yourself one.
I'm going to buy myself one and you one. This time we're going to do it. We said we're going to. I do too many podcasts. I forget everything.
Yeah, I know. But the ajna light is interesting because, he claims, and that was the conversation we had. He claims, yes, this stimulates endogenous synthesis of DMT.
I'm writing this down right now. Spell it out for me.
AJNA. Ajna Light. And his website is just ajnalight.com. And there's some good PDFs on there that'll explain what this is about.
Get on that, Jamie.
Yeah. And
Jamie's
now Guy
ordering 2
Harriman
right now.
owes me big time because I just mentioned
All right,
this on
Guy.
your show. So.
Get it together.
Right. But anyway,
So this light can produce some sort of psychedelic experience.
he claims it stimulates DMT synthesis in the pineal. When you lie underneath it, it's just a bunch of, it looks like a floor lamp, with a rectangular mount, bunch of LEDs underneath it, which he programs with an iPad in different patterns. You lie under it, and it stimulates hypnagogic hallucinations
Look at him.
that are a lot like...
That guy looks like an old school freak. Look at him.
he's a Zen monk.
I bet he is.
Yeah.
Amongst other things.
He used to be an Apple engineer. He was
Really?
Steve Jobs' right-hand man when next
He went the right way.
he went the right way.
So he's got this thing. Is that cord going down to her head? I'm having a hard time seeing what's happening. So something's wrapped around her head. That better not be a crystal.
I think
I'll
that's
fucking run out of this
I think
room.
I think it's a deceptive thing. He didn't attach anything to me when I was
it's a
on it. I
perspective
think it's
issue?
the cord going
Okay.
behind her head.
Oh, I see.
So you lie under this thing,
Mhm.
and the first time I lied under it, I thought I got all these colors, I got all these hypnagogic effects, and nice patterns and all that, like a subthreshold DMT experience. And I said, well, the LEDs are all changing color, right? And that's how I see it. He says, no, they're white. The colors are coming from you. You're supplying the colors. So, okay. So it was interesting, and then we got into the conversation. How do you know this is stimulating DMT? How do you know that's the effect? Turns out it's not so easy to nail that down. Because DMT is so ephemeral in the system, you can't take urine samples or cerebral spinal fluid or anything. It would be gone by the time you did it. So the only way, well, maybe not the only way, but one way you could do it is you could do something called, it's essentially, you couldn't do this to a human because you couldn't get a FDA approval for it, but you could put a microcapillary tube right next to the pineal that will absorb things as they're released, and then you could recover that and say, levels of DMT or higher.
Why couldn't you do that to a voluntary participant?
Voluntary or not, you'd be
Screwing their brain up?
Well, no, not necessarily, but you'd have a hard time getting permission. There might be. You could do it to a rat, though.
Oh.
You could do it to a rat.
Well, that's what Cottonwood Research Foundation's done, right? They've done that. That's how they discovered DMT in the pineal? Didn't they do that to a live rat?
Yeah. That's how they discovered it.
That was the first proof, right?
That was the first proof. Nick Cozy, who's a pharmacologist at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, he was really the first one to show that DMT is, endogenously produced. Now, it's a sigma-1 agonist as well as a serotonin agonist, which is another receptor. And, that's definitely that, but it's not clear what the function is. It's a complicated issue, to figure this out. I'll send you a paper that Nichols wrote, or I'll link you to a video where he discusses this. And it's like, he gave that at the Breaking Convention conference last summer that I was at. And it was like, he was like the big downer of the conference, right? Because everybody has this romantic idea, and he comes along and just squashes it, and it's like, man, you've disappointed a lot of people today. But on the other hand, reality is good.
Very good.
Facts are good. What Guy did do that sort of made me think maybe there is something to it. He's tried pre-dosing with an MAO inhibitor. Just take Banisteriopsis T without the admixture about 30 minutes before going under the light. And then it's much more intense and it's much more prolonged.
You've done this?
I haven't done it. But he claims that, and other people say that it definitely enhances this. So that would indicate that the breakdown of DMT is being inhibited.
Is he claiming that you could reach actual DMT states with this device upon practice?
JRE 1283. Russell Brand wonders if prophets from ancient times were actually describing psychedelic dimensions.
But like, I'm interested as well with this. I keep bringing up the subject of DMT. Like, what? I guess what I want to know about is like, because I'm, obviously a person in recovery. I don't drink, I don't take drugs, haven't done for a long time, and I recognise for certain people that they can't do it safely. Psychedelics and hallucinogens seem to me exist in a realm outside of that because they're not pleasure seeking. Right. There's like seem to me like it's a spiritual portal. However, I'm a crafty bastard when it comes to this stuff, and I'm always looking for an in. When I see your cannabis treasure trove over there, I mean, that is some, as you said, like Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff, and I'm holding in my hand now the CBD rich cannabis soft gels, clasping it, so like I'm
So you're worried that is a gateway, that CBD, which is not necessarily psychoactive?
As long as it's not psychoactive.
It's not, but it does help you with anxiety. It helps a lot of people because it alleviates a lot of inflammation, which tends to have a corresponding impact on your anxiety.
Hold on. So this says here 11 milligrams of THC. Does that mean?
It says THC.
It does say that at the bottom.
It's probably a 1-to-1.
Is this a 1-to-1?
Might be, or it's like an 18-to-1.
Or 11. It says there's an 11 and a 1.
There's a couple different ones in that box.
Oh, I almost gave you the wrong one.
Joe, what's next?
Glad you read.
A bag of smack.
Don't take that.
This one goes back in.
Don't take this one. This one's way more powerful. That's
really?
1-to-1. Yeah.
You do seem very relaxed and free from anxiety.
Feel great.
I will say that. But what I suppose I'm interested in, because listen, I'm meditating I meditate a lot. I'm doing all these things. I'm experiencing transcendent states. I'm experiencing what it's like to not feel attached to my identity as Russell. Who are you before you are Russell? Who are you before you identify yourself as a man in England? Who are you? Who is the person? Who is the consciousness? Who is the awareness? Now, when I listen to, say, Terence McKenna talking about his experiences in psychedelia at such length and with such lucidity and with so many philosophical connotations, and the way that he uses the information he's getting from hallucinogenic experiences to speculate on how we should organise society, what the implications are for freedom, his refusal to accept that there are certain kind of experiences that should be prohibited, that it's ridiculous that adults should be prevented from having that. I'm fascinated, but I'm also, I suppose, part of my bias is I love anything that gets me out of my head. I feel a tremendous sense of relief, whether it's through meditation or even sport or sex, being relieved of the burden of the constantly thinking mind. But when I hear like those vivid descriptions of DMT realm or ayahuasca realm, I think something in me hungers for that, hungers for it.
Do you worry that you're trying to get intoxicated? You worry that you're trying to find a loophole?
Yeah, because I am doing that. I'm looking for a loophole. It's like I'm going around like a sort of a trash lawyer looking for some way that I could get into. Is there? Hold on a second. What about this clause?
Trash lawyer. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I mean, I know people that have problems with addiction that have done psychedelics and didn't have a problem. But I'm sure some people have had problems, and I don't know about them. DMT is interesting in that, first of all, it's very quick. The experience is only about 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. And it's not necessary, it's not an intoxicant in the way that you would think about traditionally. You are still you in the face of this experience. And I think it's some sort of a chemical gateway. That's what I think. I think there's a gateway in your mind that can lead to some other dimension that's probably there all the time.
If there is a omnipresent, continually existing realm that human beings aren't accessing because of the particular biochemical formulation of consciousness as it is in this point in our evolution, and that we can get there. And it seems as like, I've heard Terence McKenna say, it's more real. It's more real. There's stuff in there.
Yes.
And excuse me. And when he talks about them beings, like that he describes as self-dribbling basketballs, creating like Fabergé egg, devices through vibration, and they're telling you to do it.
I never saw that.
I want that.
He's called them machine elves. He's called them all sorts of different things. The way I've described them is they're the geometric patterns made out of love and understanding. That's what they seem like.
So you can look at a geometrical pattern and read meaning into it. It had an emotional quality.
They're made out of something, and they move, they change. Like, they don't stay what they are. They're constantly evolving in front of you into something more and more beautiful. It's very weird.
What did it make you feel?
Like I knew nothing. That was the most profound aspect. Like all of this stuff that you concentrate on every day is nonsense. And there is some other thing that's connected that's probably influencing this world.
Yeah.
And it's probably what people see when they have near-death experiences, the depictions of the afterlife. I mean, that's probably what it all is.
And religious experiences.
Yeah.
When prophets are talking about, oh my God, I went into this realm.
Sure.
There's these beings. They've told me we're all one. We have to love each other.
Scholars in Jerusalem are connecting Moses' experience with the burning bush to the acacia tree. The acacia tree, which is rich in DMT. The burning bush is what God was to Moses. And that through this burning bush, he came out with these 10 commandments of how people should live their lives. I mean, that easily could have been just a very convoluted sort of translation of a DMT trip.
Certainly. And also when you think of, certainly there are archetypal images that seem to be repeated throughout ancient cultures and archaic stories that seem to refer to the potential for plant experiences to affect consciousness. Even the Garden of Eden, do not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, that otherwise you will become as gods. You know, like I sense that. Now, if there is some realm that we can reach through that experience that puts into perspective everything that else we experience on the material realm, and that thing seems to, in your words, be emanating love and understanding while ever changing, completely formless and communicating love and understanding, I can't help but think that should become our priority, to have a relationship with that realm and to bring about that experience. I don't even mean in a literal way, because even Terence McKenna said there are some people, vulnerable souls, he was probably referring to people like me, that probably shouldn't mess around with that kind of stuff. I think he was
really talking about people with schizophrenia, or people that, which he believed he had, by the way.
Did he?
Yeah, he had some very unique perspectives on schizophrenia and the way people interact with the world itself. I think if we lived in a healthy world, a healthy civilization that had a healthy relationship with psychoactive substances, we'd probably have centers where you would have a legitimate shaman, a medical advisor, and someone would take you through a guided experience. We're doing that now with ketamine. There's a lot of people that are very depressed that are having these physician-controlled ketamine experiences that have had a profound effect on their depression. My friend Neil Brennan's gone through several of them, and he's a comedian, a very funny comedian. So when he was describing it was hilarious. And he's going to a doctor's office and tripping his fucking balls off. You know, and the doctor's shooting him up with intramuscular ketamine.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and he's having these insane... I go, so you're having psychedelic experience? He's like, oh, yeah! The way he's describing it was really funny. I mean, tripping his fucking balls off in these whatever states that ketamine... I've never experienced ketamine. I don't know what it does. But it's apparently profoundly hallucinogenic. And you have these wild, crazy experiences on it. And for whatever reason, it has a great impact on depression for a lot of people. I think it's a perspective enhancer, but it also does something to rewire the mind.
Well, what some of this suggests is that mental illness is a response to our material conditions, whether that mental illness is schizophrenia, depression, or addiction. It's like people are going, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't how we're supposed to live. I took that ketamine one time towards the end of my using, and as usual, it's not in the right type of environment. You shouldn't be doing stuff like that in a nightclub. You need to be under that shamanic conditions, white coat guy or whoever you nominate as a shaman. But I felt like it was like going into a tunnel made of sound and like having to navigate. I was like, oh shit, I'm still in reality. What am I going to do? Is it as my sort of consciousness becomes a noise instead of a string of words and signs? How am I going to get out of this place? You know. So like for me, it's clear that drugs were never meant to be recreational. In fact, they never were. I was never, hey man, this is crazy. I was always like, I'm in fucking pain. I need some shit to help me out. Otherwise, I'm going to probably kill myself. You know. So like it was a way of holding that stuff at arm's length. So I guess my renewed curiosity around DMT and ayahuasca and other sort of plant medicines, and like do you know Daniel Pinchbeck and like them guys that are sort of part of that. I'm curious about it because I guess I'm continually trying to find a way where someone go, right, here's a way where we can do it where it's sort of safe. And I've heard of other people in recovery doing it. And when I think about what my motivation is when I hear people talking about and my own own recollections of experiencing what felt like God, and by God I mean a sense of oneness, and that my individual identity isn't my real identity, and I'm connected to everything, and love is the most important thing. You know, I want a real experience of that, so that when I'm out in the world, I can remember when I'm driving or when I'm dealing with people, or if I'm buying something, or if I'm feeling inferior or feeling superior, that, like you said, this is bullshit. This is like a secondary reality. Don't let it govern you. You know, as someone that's been seduced by fame, a person like, oh, if I get this part in this film, then everyone's going to love me. Oh, if this stand-up set goes well, you know, like a person that's placed all of my well-being outside of myself, the certain knowledge that there is an inner connection that will take care of you, that's accessible. I guess I'm, you know, hungry to sort of feel it in a way that's like, oh my God, now there is no doubt. So in a sense, it's a crisis of faith, not a crisis of faith, but a test of
psychedelic
faith.
states that you could achieve without taking anything. I mean, you could certainly get there in a flotation tank. You could get there through holotropic breathing. I've never done Kundalini yoga, but apparently the people that get really deep into Kundalini yoga can literally have DMT trips.
Yes.
I know I have friends that have done DMT and have experienced DMT trips through Kundalini.
Yeah.
But you have to be really dedicated. I mean, there's a lot of time. A lot of time, a lot of energy, and you have to really understand the methods and follow them to a T, and you can achieve these altered states of consciousness that are apparently, you know, not from my personal experience, but from what people tell me, incredibly profound.
Yeah, I mean, I've had comparable things. I guess that what it's, you know, the difference between feeling something that's that overwhelming that gives you no choice.
Yes.
You know, like there's like, it's not like, you know, Kundalini, you've got to do these breaths correctly, you've got to sit there, you've got to try it again.
Have you done it?
Yeah, I've done quite a bit
Have
of
you tripped?
Kundalini. Well, what for me, it feels like what I felt quite a lot yogically and meditatively is a cessation of what I would call my individual consciousness. Like, oh, I'm not this. This isn't who I am. This is just a temporary experience. And all of the value systems of our world are built upon these primal drives in collaboration with a culture that likes to stratify people and manage people and operates like a massive farm where it's easier to keep people together operating in these kind of ways systemically. I've sort of felt rushes of that, like a certain wordless clarity, if you can imagine me having anything that was wordless even for a moment, and in that space, you know, there is great peace. So I suppose what's turning me on about the DMT and ayahuasca thing is that the way it's narrativized, that you're going to meet characters and stuff like that, and it's going to be plain and beyond doubt. You know, because I suppose what prophets do, you know, like whether it, you know, when a prophet returns from whether it's the burning bush or the cave, they come back and they say, all this stuff that you're taking seriously is not real. There's this other realm. Start prioritizing it, or you are going to live in hell on earth. You're going to be governed by your materialistic drives, your sexual drives, and it's going to imprison you. And it turns out that they're right. And so, like, you know, I suppose what I'm after, because I'm partly, you know, on a super, like on one level, influenced by what you're doing and how you've created your own, like you created your own business and your own success, like this symbiosis of stand up and the podcast, and like it's become like a sort of a lifestyle brand in a sense, Joe. Like, you know, I'm sort of like, yeah, I don't want to be continually dragged into these like working within institutions. Like, you know, I'm over here doing doing Ballers, and I'm bloody glad to be over here doing Ballers and working with The Rock. And I've got a funny story about that if you want it. Okay. But like, you know, like really what interests me is like, can I dedicate my life to humorously communicating spiritual information and indeed starting to live it? So like, and I suppose what that would mean is, you know, I'm getting better. Like, I'm not a person who's obsessed with porn or sex or drugs or whatever, like, you know, to become it, to become what you actually are, to recognize that we're all different. Your perfect realization of you is going to involve hunting and all of these things that you've created through your gift. And that my perfect version of me is going to, you know, involve all of this. And not everyone needs to build sort of empires or entertainment industries or whatever, but all of us are on some journey to self-actualization and realization, as individual as our fingerprints and as natural as a seed turning into a tree. And if we don't have a way of accessing that, no wonder we're dissatisfied. No wonder there's an opioid epidemic. No wonder people are bored and angry and lonely.
Well, I think what you can do is be yourself, and what you can do is express yourself, and what you can do is constantly seek to improve and grow, and you are doing those things. So if you're saying, can I do these things, can I be comedic and spiritual, and well, you're doing it, right? So it can be done. So you're doing it. You know, it's all just a matter of what whether or not you're satisfied with your progress and where you are and who you are. And
What if DMT isn't hallucination, but communication with unknown entities?
you've done some like legitimate studies with DMT.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I work mainly kind of, I guess you could say, theoretically, in that I do more quantitative and qualitative analyses of the DMT state and try to use the tools of neuroscience to try to understand how DMT elicits its effects. So we can kind of get into, if you want to go really deep,
Yeah,
I can
sure.
give you a kind of a neuroscience lesson. And
Yeah,
we can
please.
talk about. So if we want to understand DMT, we kind of have to start with the basic observation. Before you take DMT, you are experiencing a world, right? Whenever you're awake and conscious, you're experiencing a world, the normal waking world. This is the world that's kind of familiar to us. When you take DMT, that world is transformed. It disappears. It's obliterated, and it's replaced with one that is altogether stranger, shall we say. And so what I want to do is kind of understand, first of all, how that happens, what's actually going on in the brain to cause that transition, and why that happens. And you can't do that unless you have a decent understanding of the normal waking world. So what is the normal waking world? It's a model. It's an interface generated by your brain. So you have this world-building machinery on the outer layer of your brain called the cortex, and this is generating your world all the time. All the features of the world that you're experiencing are represented within the cortex. And that applies whether you are just normal waking life, it applies in dreaming, it even applies in the psychedelic state. The world that you experience is always constructed as a model by the brain. And so what that means is that psychedelics, what they're doing is they're perturbing the brain. They're manipulating the brain and altering that model. Now, for example, with, let's say, psilocybin from magic mushrooms, psilocybin binds to a receptor in the brain called the 5-HT2A receptor, which you're probably familiar with, this serotonin receptor. Mm-hmm. And so this is it's called an excitatory receptor. It stimulates these neurons, of which your cortex is constructed from, makes them more excitable, makes them more likely to fire and share information between to other neurons. You get this kind of loosening up of the world model that your brain is constructing. So the walls start to breathe. Objects seem to kind of change their identity. Everything becomes more fluid and dynamic. And if you put someone into an MRI machine, for example, you can actually see that. In the normal waking state, you can see the neural activity. It's dynamic, but it's kind of organized and well orchestrated. You give someone psilocybin, let's say, or LSD, and you start to see the activity becoming sort of more random and fluid. So you get this state of slightly increased disorder, as if the kind of the tuning dial between order and disorder in the brain has been slightly nudged towards disorder. But then with DMT, something remarkable happens. In the early stages of the experience, you get this kind of quite chaotic state, suggesting that the brain is entering this more disordered state. But then it kind of collapses into this brand new order. So you go from the order of the normal waking world to this disordered state, and then vroom, you collapse into this completely different type of order. So the brain is effectively constructing an entirely different model of reality. It's no longer the normal waking world model, which acts as kind of an interface with the environment, but it's constructing a completely different world model.
When you say constructing, why do you use that term? Why do you use the brain is constructing?
Because so if you think about
how does the brain interact with how do we interact with the environment using our senses, right? So light information comes through the eyes, the retina, and it stimulates the very back of the brain. You have an area. Oh,
you brought slides.
I brought slides.
There we go.
Yeah, maybe the next one, Jamie, is a bit easier to see. There we go. So at the back of the brain here, you have an area called V1, which is the primary visual cortex. That's your interface with the world. Sensory information comes and strikes. It activates patterns of neural activity in V1, but it's very, very messy. It's like lines and patches of color and, lines moving in certain directions. It's a mess, right? It's very noisy. It's very messy. It's incredibly dynamic. It doesn't make any sense. And so what your brain does is it has another level above V1 that kind of has a bird's eye view and is looking for patterns within this neural activity in this lowest level. So it's looking for saying, oh, those lines kind of could be a triangle, or this could be a circle. It's trying to find patterns to try generate order from this messy level in V1.
Can I ask you this? How do we know it does that?
That's a good question. Well, there are a number of things. So the earliest evidence came from one of the earliest forms of evidence came from a guy called Wilder Penfield. Are you familiar with?
No.
So Wilder Penfield, he was interested in treating epilepsy. And he invented something called the Montreal procedure, where he would remove a part of the brain that was the focus of epileptiform activity. The idea being that it would kind of cure someone's epilepsy. But before he could do that, of course, he needed to make sure that he wasn't removing important parts for someone's function. So what he would do is he would cut the top of their skull off when they're still awake. And kind of expose their brain. And then he would zap different parts of their brain and say, what's happening.
Oh,
right?
my God.
Can you imagine?
Isn't it crazy that that's how we have to find out what works? We have to, the aliens probably look at us and go, oh, my God, you guys are still doing that?
Yeah, nowadays things have moved on a bit, right?
I'm sure, but this is not that long ago, right? How long ago is this?
1950s.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Not even 100 years.
Right,
so 100 years
exactly.
ago, they were literally taking your skull and turning it into a hat.
They would
popping the cap off
pop the
and
cap
just,
off.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see what this does.
Exactly. They would zap it. And what he noticed is that when he would zap right at the back of the brain, so this is this primary visual cortex that's receiving information from the environment, his patients would say, oh, I see flashes of light, I see lines, I see colors. It was very simple kind of things. But then he would move forward to kind of higher levels that we know now are kind of high levels. And then they'd say, oh, I see triangles, or I see an orange circle, things like this. Then he'd keep going higher and higher. And then they'd say, oh, I see people, or I see cops and robbers. And then right at the top, you reach an area called the hippocampus, which you may have heard of, involved in memory. And the hippocampus basically keeps an eye. It's got a bird's eye view of all of this world model your brain is constructing, and it's kind of following and looking for interesting or important patterns. And when he stimulated that, his patients would actually report memories. They would say, "Oh, I hear somebody talking to me. This happened this morning when I was leaving the house. My mother was telling me something about, you've got your coat on backwards," or something like this. So you have these levels of the cortex that go from very simple, kind of very low-level visual data at the bottom end, and then at the very top you've got kind of higher order things such as faces or people. This is sitting at the top. Now, interesting. Have you ever, when you are dreaming, right? So let's think about dreaming for a second. It's quite instructive, I think. When you're dreaming, right, the brain is actually constructing the world in basically the same way as it does when you're awake. Dreams are kind of selective simulations of the waking world. The difference, of course, is that there's no sensory inputs. So if you scan someone's brain while they're having a dream, you'll see that this back of the brain, this primary visual cortex, is kind of quiet. The brain is kind of using what it's learned about building the world in the normal waking state to construct the dream world. So the dream world is it's built from exactly the same stuff as the normal waking world. However, there's interesting features. In a dream, have you ever tried to use your cell phone?
No.
Not many people have. What about read a book in a dream?
I don't think so. One thing I have learned to do is I think I saw it in a movie. If you knock on a door, you'll realize that you're in a dream. And
Is this Waking Life?
I don't remember what movie it was. But it was a guy who was instructing how to lucid dream. And that if you make a habit of walking through a doorway in your home, and every time you walk through a doorway in your home, tap on the doorway, knock on it with your hand, and say, "Am I awake?" Knock, knock, knock. Yeah. And then you'll get in a habit of doing that every time you go through a doorway. And if you go through a doorway in your dream, you'll do it. You'll say, "Am I awake?" And then as you go to knock, 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 you're like, "Oh, shit, I'm dreaming."
There we go.
And then you realize, and if you don't give into astonishment, you can maintain that dream, right? That's the thing. It's like, "Oh my God, I'm dreaming. I can't believe this." And then you wake up, right? Yeah. You get too freaked out and you wake up. But if you don't do it, and I've only been able to do this a few times because I don't really knock. I did it for a while after the movie. I saw the movie. I tried it for a while. And I did have a dream like that where I went through a doorway and I said, "Am I dreaming?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm dreaming." And then I realized I was dreaming. And then I was like flying. I was doing a lot of weird stuff. But then it went away, and then I stopped doing it. And I've always been like, why don't I practice lucid dreaming? I've thought about it like a dozen times at least. Like, why don't I just get a book on lucid dreaming and really try to attempt to learn the techniques, and I never do.
Yeah, it takes commitment. But now there's actually a simpler way of that kind of reality tests. A simpler way now is to just get out your cell phone occasionally, open up the calculator and do a few calculations and just check everything's working, right? Or open up a book and try to read it. Because the thing about the dream world is, again, just like the normal waking world, it's constructed over kind of levels of a hierarchy from the highest level models. So your brain can construct a high level model of a cell phone quite easily. But all of the fine details of how it functions, that's all represented at the lowest level of the cortex. That's really dependent on sensory inputs. So you can dream of having your mobile phone in your hand and doing with it, but as soon as you try to do something with it, your brain has to kind of construct that function, and it can't do it unless it has access to sensory inputs. And so that's how you can test if you're lucid dreaming. Okay. Yeah, and which is why the DMT state is so fascinating, is because it's nothing like the dream state. People say, that perhaps DMT is released when you're dreaming, and that it actually triggers. I mean, this goes back to the 1980s. There's a theoretical paper published by a guy called Jace Calloway, and he said, "Oh, maybe DMT could be produced during REM sleep because it's closely related to melatonin structurally, both kind of tryptamine structures." But when you analyze the phenomenology, the actual experience of DMT, it's nothing like dreaming. Dreaming is generally the brain making use of what it knows about how to construct the world in the waking state and doing so in the dream state. So that's why if you ask people, many studies on dreaming have shown that people, when they dream about people, they dream about dogs and cats, they dream about, the amount of time they spend talking on the telephone or watching TV is actually similar to what it is in waking life. So dreaming is more like a selective simulation of the waking world. It's not that difficult to explain. Because your brain, from the moment you were born, your brain was learning to construct the world as a model of the environment. This world is the only world that your brain knows how to build or should know how to build. And yet when you introduce this molecule, dimethyltryptamine, into the brain suddenly starts constructing a world it never learned to construct. It's like the brain is speaking a language it never learned to speak, and doing so flawlessly. These worlds are of beautiful, crystalline, clarity, perfectly finessed, staggeringly complex narrative complexity that I think is very difficult to explain. There's no simple explanation of why the brain should suddenly become capable of constructing these worlds unless, and this is where things become more contentious, we are indeed interfacing with some kind of intelligence. That's the explanation that makes sense to me, is that somehow DMT is gating access to some kind of the flow of information from some kind of intelligent agent that is directing the DMT.
JRE MMA Show number 90. Rashad Evans describes meeting towering half-human, half-serpent beings during a DMT experience.
Everybody has their own awakening, you know, and if some people may not have that in this life, you know, they may never have that awakening, but
some people are burdened by their environment as well, right? There's too much stress and anxiety, and
where you can't even see it.
Sometimes you don't have space,
and that's why I even give a nod to the psychedelics in that respect. When if you don't have the ability to have that mental space, there is something that can have you have that, you know, that insight that somebody who was doing all the meditation, because all you really need to do is feel it to understand why you need to do it.
Yes.
And that's why I'm lucky that I was able to feel it. So now it's nothing for me to meditate and go through all these, you know, spiritual practice, because I know that is something real. But beforehand, I was like, man, that shit is not real. Like, I don't believe that, man. Like, right. You feeling energy, huh? Like, I mean, I used to be one of those guys, but until I went through it, I'm just like, you know, you don't have that understanding.
Well, it's hard to see the result. You kind of have to trust the process. It's hard to see the result before you've experienced it. You kind of have to trust the process, go through it. Then something for me, a big one is yoga. I'm a big believer in yoga, and not just for physical reasons, for mental reasons. It helps me tremendously. And when I don't do it, I'm good. Like, legitimately, I should do yoga twice a week, because I'm really only good for about 3 days after yoga class. Like, I need to just really balance out. If I was doing it 3 times a week, there's not a thing in the world that could fuck with me.
Yeah.
And mentally, I'd be like, I'm fine. Everything will be fine.
I've done the Bikram's yoga, and that shit was just so hot. I really couldn't focus.
That's the key, though.
I know, but I wasn't where I am right now.
You should do it now.
So tell me, like when you go to Bikram, is that what you do?
Yeah. Well, my place is not affiliated with Bikram anymore.
Okay.
Because he's got arrested for some scumbaggery. He's actually been arrested. I don't think he can come to America. I think that's the thing. I think he's got to stay in hiding. The thing about it, that guru life, that's the problem. that is the problem. It really is a problem when any one person has that much influence over so many people, particularly a male having so much influence over females that worship him, especially if you're a scumbag. And there's a thing about this. He did not invent those postures, and he didn't even invent that sequence. He brought it to America, and he popularized doing it in very hot rooms. The benefits, though, forget him. Take him out of the equation, because there's so many people that practice it, and they've had incredible benefits from it. It's really unfortunate that it's connected to this very controversial individual, because then people associate Bikram yoga with this guy that's been, accused of multiple sexual assaults and rapes and all these different things. But you take that away from him as a human being, and the people that practice it, what they get from it. First of all, you know exactly what you're going to do every day. There's 26 postures and 2 breathing exercises. 1 breathing exercise in the beginning, 26 postures, 1 breathing exercise at the end. It's 90 minutes. It's 90 minutes at 105 degrees. And it's fucking brutal. And I did it right before I got here. I do it, and I like to do it in the mornings, first thing in the morning. I do it before I've eaten anything. I go through a 90-minute yoga class. I really like doing it that way. And then at the end of the day, I have a couple different places that I do it at. I like to mix it up. But that hot yoga for me is the way to go, because first of all, I know the postures. They all serve a purpose in terms of helping my body, helping my balance, keeping my flexibility, strengthening my joints. There's so many really positive physical benefits from it. And then 2, the meditation aspect of it, because no matter what kind of bullshit I have going on in my life, if I just breathe and think about the exercise, and then, you know, my brain starts racing and I'll forget what I'm doing and I'll start thinking about other shit, but I bring it back, breathe. Just breathe. You're not going anywhere for 90 minutes. You're locked in this room. Literally, the door's locked when the class starts.
Oh, wow.
So I am just breathing and going through these. And I know that I can get through it because I've done it 1,000 times before. Just breathe and get through it. And there's a cleansing of like all your brain. There's like there's residue of like shitty thoughts bouncing around inside your brain. Anxieties and fears and regrets and anger and frustration and all this shit that's in your head that just gets in the way of clear thinking. It gets in the way of being able to see things in an objective, beneficial way. And to be able to see things the way other people see them as well. Like sometimes I have this issue, and I think a lot of people do, that I don't see how other people are seeing things. I see how I see things.
Right.
And then I go, well, okay, let me look at it from their way. Let me just abandon, no, well, they're fucking wrong. That's why. Abandon all that shit and try to look at it from other people's ways. I feel like what yoga does for me is it allows me to be free. It allows me to clean up all my preconceived notions and clean out all my misconceptions and just see things for how they are. And I always feel better. Always.
See, I got to try that.
Oh, it's the best. Especially now that you're on this vegan diet. I'm telling you, you're on that path anyway. The yoga it's just so good for straightening your fucking head out, man.
I always wanted to try the Kundalini yoga.
That's the shit that's supposed to make you trip. Yeah. I've had a bunch of friends do it. They say, my friend Denny, he's done it and had like and he's done DMT too. He's like, dude, it's the same goddamn thing.
That's what
you
he
have
said,
full-blown visions. You have full-blown psychedelic visions. Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Like when I do like the DMT, I don't have it's weird. I don't have like those
visions.
Okay,
that's because you're doing 5-methoxy dimethyltryptamine. The visions come from NN dimethyltryptamine.
Yeah.
Totally different thing. I've done both.
I've done that before.
You've done NN?
Yeah,
and you have no visions?
No, I have visions. It's kind of like it's just like silly things though. Sometimes I've seen like one time I did it. I've seen like this half, like it was like I awake and I'm in a place and I'm just with these 3 massive beings like tall as a building, and they were like half human and they were half snake, and like I had a snake from the waist down and they were human from the waist up, but had like a snake face.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that was one of the visions that I had.
What do you think that represented?
I don't know, but it was weird because during that experience it was like they were all like all 3 of them were staring at me and they were looking down, and then one of them reached for me, and then I started going up, and then I started going around their body, and then I went around the body, and then as I was going around the body, every once in a while I would see the face of it, and it would like open up like a cobra, and then it would close, but it wasn't scary, it wasn't terrifying, and I went all the way up the body, and it was like I was able to see from another angle, like me up in the body, and then it like opened me up like a flower or something like that. It was weird, and then my trip went like super fast.
So you definitely have had visions.
Yeah, I just can't quite make out like what's it
supposed to be.
Yeah, what's it supposed to be?
I had a bunch of jokers giving me the finger the last time. A bunch of jesters, like court
I never
jesters.
seen nothing like that, man.
It was ridiculous. They
I
were
heard
all
about
like,
the machine.
fuck you, all like circling me, like infinite numbers of.
Gosh.
Basically, the feeling that I got was like, oh, I take myself too seriously. And these jesters were just going, fuck you. Like, you don't like that. You don't like when someone goes, fuck you.
No,
so they were going, fuck you. And there was like, but they weren't saying the words, but they were definitely giving me the finger. But there was like an infinite number of jesters surrounding me going, like giving me like this vibrating finger. And I was like, oh, but it was clear what they were saying. Like, hey, bitch, you take yourself too seriously. And then I was like, oh, you're right. And once I would say, you're right, they're like nodding at me like, mm-hmm.
Oh.
Okay.
See, that's what I like. I like to be able to work. Like, that's work.
Yeah.
That's work right there. Like, you went and you worked through something, you know?
Yes. I think when you work too hard at something and you're trying to achieve something, like oftentimes you think very highly of yourself. Like that's what you like. I should, my Netflix special is gonna be the shit. This is gonna be the best one I've ever done. I'm gonna fucking show everybody how good this is. And they were like, fuck you. And I was like, okay, all right, yeah, you're right. I was like, you're right. This is silly. That's like I'm just alive for a certain amount of time, and I shouldn't think that way. I mean, there's part of you that gets trapped in thinking that way because you're trying to do something, but you don't have to think that way to do the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, like those visions and being able to, like when I did ayahuasca, I didn't have any visions, man. I didn't have anything. Like I got into a pretty good space, but I wasn't like, I didn't have like the typical teaching lessons everybody else has when they do something.
That seems like you probably didn't get a strong enough dose.
No, I did. I did 2 large cups.
The thing is with that, and I'm speaking just from people talking to me about it because I've only done the pure DMT. I haven't done the ayahuasca.
Oh, you haven't done the ayahuasca.
People say that a lot of these people that are making it, either they're not making it correctly or they're making a light dose because they're worried about gringos going crazy and and they don't want to be responsible for that shit. So I know people that have gone and they've had these experiences where they've done it with someone in America or someone who's done through a more commercial sort of organization, and it wasn't really that strong or profound, and then they went and did it with someone who's real, someone who's making some fucking super high grade, 97 octane shit, and
that's
they were like, fuck.
That's what I need, because I feel like after that I felt like damn, I must be broke, man. I'm I must be broken. Like I can't even feel the damn ayahuasca. But it brought, like, it didn't give me the experience I wanted, but it gave me the experience that I needed. And that's something that I got after I was like over the disappointment of it. I was like, you know what, I didn't get what I wanted, but I definitely got what I needed, because whenever you sit in a circle and stuff like that, it's always an amazing cathartic thing where you just kind of just like shed and just go through those emotions. Just watching other people just be so raw with their emotions and just kind of feeling that, just through symbiosis, you kind of like start to feel like the work come through you. That's how I felt it.
JRE 1964. Joe Rogan wonders if DMT transports consciousness into a hidden dimension filled with aware entities.
Would you be comfortable sharing some of your own psychedelic experiences?
Sure. I mean, the DMT experiences are by far the most profound. And those are the ones that have really made me, every time I've done it, it's just completely made me rethink how I interface with people, what life is, and what that experience, what is that? Is that a well of souls you're entering into? Is it another dimension? Is it some sort of parallel dimension of disembodied consciousness that you seem to be engaging with life forms, with things that know you, that can see your thoughts and see resistance and see bullshit in you? I mean, it's every time I've done it, it's sort of just like, in one way or another, just removed one layer of the onion, one layer of bullshit that keeps you from just embracing the great mystery of this existence, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think we're built on these layers and layers of billions of years of evolution, and sort of from the single cellular organisms, it's all in us still. And that our prefrontal cortex, our brain, has kind of helped us focus on what we need as humans in our transition from birth to death. But that when you we talk about the default mode network, which is sort of the part of the brain that's identified as the sense of self. And the classic psychedelics weaken that part, and then more information floods. So I think we can get back through all of the intercellular knowledge that is stored in our bodies and connect with this deeper unitive sense. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's also, they help so much to abandon preconceived notions and just sort of, we don't realize how much of the way we sort of see ourselves and see the world is a kind of a convenient
set of armor that we put on to try to protect us from uncomfortable thoughts and protect us from, just mystery. The mystery of but there is a lot of mystery in life. It's mostly mystery.
Yeah.
And I think psychedelics are the greatest mystery. And there's something about them that's just the idea that it exists, that you can smoke a thing and then 15 seconds later be transported into an impossible realm, and that exists, and no one's discussing it. You're every day on the news, they're talking about a million different things that seem so trivial once you've had a DMT experience.
Yeah, you're reminding me of my 5-MeO DMT experience that I had. And it felt like I went sort of back to the moment of creation.
Yeah.
But that I realized that so much of our life is patterns, like you're saying, that we have these habits and we have these patterns and we take them as fixed, but they're not actually fixed. We have put them into motion. And this 5-MeO, by bringing me back to this moment of creation, it helped me realize that the new can enter at any moment, that there's a way. And so I've actually felt that experience which I had one time back in 1985, has been a big part of our success to get to the place that we're at now with psychedelic research, with MDMA therapy, because it helped me to realize that whenever I felt blocked or stuck, that I could try to find something new to enter into the picture, that there's this perpetual ability to connect with creation, to connect with the new, and so much of our life is on cruise control, is on these patterns.
Yeah. And it's easier to do it that way.
It is,
Yeah.
and there's advantages to that, so we don't have to rethink things all the time, but it also narrows our vision.
Yeah, it very much so does. It's just so easy to fall into patterns. You fall into the patterns of the group that you hang out with. You fall into patterns of accents and, dress and the way people behave and think about things and the concepts that they adopt. And when you have like a real breakthrough psychedelic experience, it just makes all that seem so trivial. My DMT experience, my first 5-MeO experience, I've done both multiple times, but the first 5-MeO experience, I thought I fucked up. I thought it's over because there was a moment when you're entering into whatever that great white field of geometry is, where you go, oh my God, am I dying? Like it feels like there's no way I'm coming back from this. Like I've gone so far, and then that fear subsided once the experience just fully kicked in. Like the fear was at the doorway to the experience. Like, oh no, what have I done? And then you go into that. What the weirdest thing about 5-MeO too is the lack of visuals. It's just this great white pattern. This thing where you don't have any memory, you don't have any. You're barely a conscious entity, and you're experiencing what seems to be like the source code of the universe. I mean, it's just a get. It's like I felt like I was shot through a rocket to the center of everything.
And yet there is an aspect of memory, and there is an aspect of us paying attention.
Yeah.
There's still this observer in some ways.
Yeah. It's pretty compromised, but there's something that you come back with. But it's also very difficult to hold on to, right?
It is, and that's this process of integration that's necessary. But also for the 5-MeO, it's so brief.
Yeah.
So that's where the ibogaine experience can be 12 hours or more, or the MDMA experiences, we make them into 8-hour sessions.
I haven't done ibogaine.
Oh.
Yeah.
JRE number 1284. Graham Hancock reveals how ancient cultures believed ayahuasca could guide the soul along the Milky Way after death.
And I go into the issue of ayahuasca in this book because, first of all, ayahuasca is itself another example of Amazonian science. As you and I and many of the listeners and viewers know, the active ingredient of ayahuasca is DMT, dimethyltryptamine. But dimethyltryptamine is not normally accessible through the gut. We have to smoke it or vape it to get that rocket ship to the other side of reality. And the journey lasts, 10, 12 minutes, not much more than that, and sometimes quite a lot less. What ayahuasca does is it makes DMT available through the gut. The reason it's not available through the gut is because of an enzyme in the gut called monoamine oxidase. And that switches off DMT on contact. The ayahuasca vine, which is one of the two ingredients of the ayahuasca brew, the other ingredient is leaves that contain DMT. The ayahuasca vine contains a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which switches off the enzyme in the gut and allows the DMT to be accessed orally, which produces a rather different journey from the smoked or vaped DMT trip. It's a much longer journey. It's 4 or 5 hours. It allows you to integrate and to interrelate with the strange landscapes in which you find yourself amongst. And the entities that you encounter, I'm not making any claims about the reality status of those entities, but what I am saying, and it's a fact, is that people who work with DMT and ayahuasca do encounter what they construe to be entities who communicate with them intelligently. So somebody in the Amazon, out of 150,000 different species of plants and trees, selected 2 that are not psychoactive on their own, but when put together, create an extraordinary visionary brew. And ayahuasca means the vine of the dead. And what it's connected to in South American religious and spiritual thinking is what happens to us when we die. The Tucano, who are an Amazonian people who work regularly with ayahuasca, I mean, the Tucano actually will give a teaspoonful of ayahuasca to a newborn infant. They feel ayahuasca is so important that there is a hidden realm around us which we are not normally aware of, and we need to be aware of it. And ayahuasca is an important part of that. In their ayahuasca journeys, the Tucano shamans experience visions, and they will then come back to an alert, normal problem-solving state of consciousness, and they will paint and depict their visions. And what's intriguing, and I go into it in the book, is that quite a number of the Tucano paintings of the other world, of the afterlife realm, of the entrance to the other world, are geometrical, and they look exactly like the geoglyphs. So I'm beginning to wonder whether these geoglyphs were part of a system of spiritual ideas concerning what happens to us after death and what we need to do in this life to ensure a beneficial outcome. And oddly enough, that same system of ideas is found in the Mississippi Valley. In the Amazon, it involves particularly ayahuasca and the belief that the ayahuasca journey takes you to the afterlife realm and a journey along the Milky Way. In the Mississippi Valley, the mound builder sites up and down the Mississippi Valley, particularly Moundville in Alabama, exactly the same system of religious ideas associated with geometrical constructions, that on death, the soul, they're very specific, ascends to the constellation of Orion, transits from the constellation of Orion to the Milky Way, makes a journey along the Milky Way, which they call the path of souls, and encounters challenges and ordeals where the soul must account for the life that it has lived. Then we go to Egypt, and what do we find? The same system of ideas. The soul must rise up to the constellation of Orion. There's a narrow shaft cut through the southern side of the Great Pyramid of Giza, which targets directly the lowest of the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Widely accepted as a star shaft or a soul shaft. The soul would rise up through that shaft, get to the constellation of Orion, which stands by the banks of the Milky Way. It would then transit to the Milky Way, which the ancient Egyptians called the Winding Waterway. And it would make a journey along the Milky Way where it would be confronted by challenges and ordeals. Very similar idea to the Tucano, very similar idea to the Mississippi Valley. As far as we know, none of these cultures were in contact with one another. Either we're dealing with a huge, unbelievable, extraordinarily detailed coincidence involving architecture and ideas, or we're looking at a legacy that was inherited in all of these different places from a remote common ancestor. And I believe that that's what we're looking at.
What do we think the people from the ancient Mississippi Valley, that culture, what do we think they were using if they weren't using ayahuasca, or do we think that's what they were using?
Well, that's an interesting question, whether visionary substances are the only way to get into altered states of consciousness. And I would say they are definitely not. Of course, there are visionary substances which are used in Native American vision quests. I've had the privilege of peyote ceremony with the Native American church.
I've never done that. What is that like?
I loved it, actually. I thought it was amazing. It doesn't overpower you in the way that DMT or ayahuasca does. It's much gentler. It's much more. You feel much more integrated and connected with nature. Your thought processes are quite clear. It felt just like a very beautiful and healing experience. And I love the ceremony that I'm inside a teepee with 30 or 40 other people, and that there are specific roles that are assigned to those different individuals. One will keep the door, another will be responsible for the fire, which is a work of art in itself. Just gazing into that fire and the glowing embers is enough to induce an altered state of consciousness on its own. Incredible drumming, which drives your state of consciousness into a kind of peak experience. This is a technology for accessing other levels of experience and other levels of reality. And it's clear that the Native Americans had a number of advanced technologies in this area. The sun dance doesn't use a substance, but it uses austerity, it uses pain to drive an altered state of consciousness. The objective in every case seems to be, let's just for a while get ourselves out of the narrow, rigid frame of the alert problem-solving state of consciousness. We all need that. It's incredibly useful. Hunter-gatherers need it just as much as people in cities need it. But it's not the only state of consciousness available to human beings. And maybe that's one of the big mistakes that we're making in our culture, and was not made in shamanistic societies.
That is a really interesting breakdown. That maybe that is one of the big mistakes we're making in our culture. When people point to the problems that we have in this country, one of the problems we have is our inability to connect with each other, or to recognize that we're all sharing this space and time together, and instead wanting to uphold our own religious or ideological ideas as being the only one way to get going, the only one way to get through. And one of the things that I've found with these psychedelic experiences, it really makes ideologies seem, if not preposterous, at the very least insignificant in comparison to human experiences.
Absolutely.
The experience of camaraderie and friendship and love. You realize, like, oh, this is what's important.
This is what it's really about.
Yes, not enforcing your ideas or pushing them on other people and forcing people to behave the way you behave, but instead, love.
JRE number 2002. Amanda Fielding reveals how tiny psychedelic doses may unlock hidden brain connections we barely understand.
Suddenly, the psychedelics are at the center of this new approach to healing. And I think the healing of psychedelics goes much, much farther than what we've touched on so far, which is the psychologically based conditions. I think it can be very, very useful in different doses, because what is so wonderful about psychedelics is to have totally different effects in the different dose.
Right.
And at the micro dose, I'm beginning to have evidence, and I'm just starting a study, which shows amazing potential results of microdose for Alzheimer's.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely amazing, remarkable.
Really?
Yeah. And
I was watching a video yesterday on cannabis and Parkinson's. It was incredible.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman who had horrible loss of control of his body and the shaking, and they gave him cannabis oil.
Yeah.
And he put it under his tongue, and a few minutes later, he's lying back on the couch, and then he holds his hands out, and his hands are dead straight. I'm like, this is extraordinary.
Extraordinary. And my partner before, who is the father of my children, he got Parkinson's. So I was very well, I'm very fond of him. Mild Parkinson's, but still it was Parkinson's. And so I'd heard how, and I studied it, how microdosing ibogaine is very good for minimizing. So I'm setting up a research into that.
Interesting.
You know, I think, and I think also...
Yeah, this is the gentleman right here. This is exactly the video that I saw. So this guy has terrible loss of control of his body. He can barely hold the cannabis oil in his mouth.
Poor man.
Yeah. I mean, he's struggling so bad. But now, it says 1:37 p.m. This is when he takes it. And then you see just a few minutes later, they show him lie back, and This is at. Go ahead, Jamie. That's 141. Look at this. I mean, not even 10 minutes.
That is magic.
And look at this. And he's fine. He sits up, and he's just blown away by it. He's like, it's so quickly. And look at his hands. Incredible.
No, that is wonderful.
I have a friend who has a child that has pretty severe autism. And when he gives the kid cannabis, when he gives him edible cannabis, it just stops it.
Yes.
It just stops it. The kid can
absolutely
make eye contact, communicate.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I could show you. The trouble is I can show you privately, but not. The person involved doesn't want it to go out. Of a wonderful old lady of 97 who had Alzheimer's for 7 years or something, but she was very bright. She was a poet and a poetry and was looked after by her son. And then he went away for a week and someone else came and looked after. And when he came back, she was in a kind of acute vegetative apathy where she didn't recognize him, just staring into space. And they discussed it before, and she'd said, she knew he sometimes took a psychedelic, and so he gave her a microdose of LSD. And an hour later, I've got the photograph, she's a little sparkling old lady with her full contact with him, saying, I feel so wonderful, let's read some poetry now.
Wow.
You know, just like that man.
Yeah.
And then he contacted me and said, what should he do? So I said, well, first thing would be to get a doctor to help you manage it, and then continue with the lower doses gets that effect, which was 10 microdose, which is 10 millionth of a gram. I mean, such a small dose, you would hardly think it could have an effect. And that does something which I'm doing research on now. I think it's to do with the connectivity between the different brain centers, which I think it sparks. And it brought her back. And her children said it was just remarkable.
It's incredible.
You know, and I've noticed the same things. I'm in the middle of getting going on an autism study, because I think certainly with level 1, the lower degrees of autism, microdosing LSD can be enormously beneficial. And I've got a friend who's had experience of that, and wrote a very good book about it, actually, called Autism and LSD. And so now I'm designing a study, I'm getting his advice on the autism level of things. And I think that what I'm fascinated in, and this is where I got this interest right back in 1966, are what are the mechanisms underlying that makes LSD and associated compounds have the effect it has. And obviously then there was no brain imaging, so it was very difficult to see inside the brain. One could only theorize about it, make hypotheses. And so this Dutch scientist who I had a long relationship with had this hypothesis that it constricts, it's a vasoconstrictor, constricting the veins, so blood comes into the capillaries, can't get out, the capillaries blow up and squeeze out the cerebral spinal fluid, and then slowly over the hours, gravity pulls the blood down again. So that's
the theory.
Yeah, and you go back to normal. But during that period of more blood in the brain, you have more energy. Now I'm looking into, how does it make more energy apart from providing more glucose and oxygen? And I've got a very, very interesting something which is coming up, which I'll tell you on my next talk about.
Okay.
But I'm very excited because I think anyone you talk to would say that the psychedelics or indeed cannabis, they all work on the same direction. I think cannabis and the psychedelics have the same underlying mechanisms, but at different levels of I think the constrictions in the psychedelics are much stronger because you obviously get much higher you can on a psychedelic, but they're going in the same direction. And that's what endogenously, a lot of I'd love to know more about that, and I will if I've got time to do that, study into the underlying, serotonin, dopamine, all the different enzymes, hormones in the body which can do these things endogenously.
Yes.
I mean, we know the saints got top high.
Mm-hmm.
What did Doug Stanhope see during those 10 minutes inside the DMT realm?
The best thing is to get into the state we could just be Doug Stanhope. And I go, Doug Stanhope, you're on. And just push you onto the stage.
And to get me into that state, I have to know
Incorrect.
what time I should
Incorrect.
not be
No.
shit-faced like I was last night.
No. This is
Don't
the way.
take 50
Cheers.
milligrams.
Come on. Take 175.
Don't take
Let's go
50
200.
milligrams and then have Joe Rogan go, show starts now.
Let's do
fuck.
mushrooms. Let's do mushrooms. Let's do.
I'm
the
scared
show
of 'em.
on-
I'm scared
Me
of 'em.
too. That's the point. Come on,
How long has
Douglas.
it been?
Yesterday.
I did do I
For me?
microdosed.
I'm doing them all the time.
All right.
Small amounts.
Exactly. I don't want to even say her name, but yeah, Carmen Morales.
What?
Yeah, she came out. She
What's
was
her name? Don't say her name.
She's a comic.
Don't listen to me. If you don't want to say her name, don't say her name. Let's call her.
She would want her name to be
Boogie.
said.
No.
No. She wasn't dealing
She's
drugs.
giving you drugs.
Yeah.
Don't.
You've given me drugs.
Don't tell these fucking people.
Can you black out the Joe Rogan experience and just say the
Doug
experience?
Stanhope.
Allegedly.
Doug Stanhope. When the first time he and I did DMT, I was worried I lost him. I was really genuinely worried.
Oh my goodness.
You were gone.
Oh my goodness.
You had gone
Oh my
like
goodness.
you had gone to this snoring thing where I was like, do I lift him up so that he doesn't swallow his fucking tongue? I was like, oh my god, if I kill Doug, if the man show dies, because I give Doug DMT.
It was dying. By the way, that we knew we were writing the last monologues ever, and that's what fucked me up. We've told this story every time, I'm sure, on your podcast. But we were at your house writing. We know this is the last of the monologues, and they're fucking just pap dredge, fucking awful. What's up,
It
guys?
wasn't that bad.
But by the end,
it wasn't that
when
bad.
we know
It was
it's
just-
fucking
there
over
was-
and we're beaten.
Yeah. Well, there was some.
Last time you want to smoke DMT, my first time, like, all right, this sucks, and we're just getting through this, and then you want to smoke DMT, and then I go fucking into alternate realities, and then I come out of it 10 minutes later saying, I remember, I came out of it just saying, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, because I've just learned the fucking...
You know what else you said? You said, you've already seen this. You said that to me. Oh, you've already seen this. You've already
I
seen this.
swear the picture of fucking Bill Hicks on your wall winked at me, and when I said that to
the
you...
one with him and the lighting the American flag with a cigarette.
Yeah, what you know,
Lighting the cigarette with the American flag.
But
Yeah.
I came out of it and I looked, and I swear Bill Hicks fucking winked at me. When I said that to you, you went, fucking, looked at me like cliche. But I swear that happened.
No.
I'm not even that big a Bill
No.
Hicks fan.
You were just insecure because you had like experienced death, and you came back.
When I would go outside to smoke cigarettes from the writer's room on the lot after that,
Yeah.
for a week, I couldn't make direct eye contact with the giant dumpster-sized electrical generator because I thought I could make it blow up with my mind. The wiring in my head was so... I've never done it since. People try to
Oh, we
drop
should-
that off at the merch booth. I
We
go,
should do it
never
tonight.
again.
We should do it tonight.
Fuck no.
Yeah, come
Well,
on.
yeah, when
man.
I'm
You're
about
okay.
to when
You're
I'm gonna
better.
quit smoking cigarettes.
You're
yeah,
better
that
now
would be.
because of that day.
I don't know.
Yeah, you are. You know why? Because you know that that's possible. You didn't know that that was possible.
But it's hard to break up. Okay, I'm going to write a bit about this that now I know is dog shit and means nothing because I've been through that experience where you go, this is all so fucking, life is so silly, but you still have to make
Yeah,
a living by...
But Doug just expressed that. You don't have.
I've been doing that.
But I know you have. But don't worry about that. It doesn't have to be dog shit and silly. It's you. You don't think about that. Think about you. Think about if you were like some 24-year-old guy working in a fucking newspaper distributor office. You had a bullshit job and you're allowed to listen to podcasts and you listen to you talk about your experience. Don't worry about like your own fucking weirdness in handling it. Worry about what it is. What it is like you died and came back. Like you really felt like you died and came back. When you came back,
I didn't feel like I died.
You said
I
to
felt
me,
like I knew.
You said to me,
hearsay, Your Honor.
This is what you said. You said life eats life. You said life just eats life. Life eats life. Life eats life.
Wow.
This is what you said. When you were coming out, you were like, life just eats life. Life just eats life. It just keeps going. It keeps going. Life eats life. Life eats life. I'm just trying to hang on. Life eats life. Life eats life. It's like, you've already been there. You've already been here. You've already been here.
Ultimate
and then
knowledge.
you're like, you took me to this place. You've already been there. I'll never forget that because I thought you were going to die. I was like, God damn it. Nobody's ever died from this shit. I'm like, if Doug's the first guy to die, I'm like, he's like, maybe I like overestimated the RPMs that his fucking engine can handle and redlined. But you got through it. And that was the thing you kept saying. Life eats life. Life eats life. Life eats life.
But the dichotomy of having to go from that supernatural experience in 10 minutes and then go back to, oh wait, now we really have to try it, finishing up these dumb monologues.
Yeah, but that's okay
Like,
too. That's okay too because that's a unique challenge. That's like some weird thing we're doing. Like, what are we doing?